Thanks so much for visiting Tina Butty on YouTube. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yeah, boy.
Hello and welcome back to Tina Butty Podcast. I'm Erica.
And I am Uhtred, son of Uhtred. Destiny is all.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody, yes. In case you haven't guessed it, it's The Last Kingdom.
Yes.
That's the topic today.
Yes. And they don't have any, like, what's their theme song?
It's that...
Yeah,
it's a crazy one.
I can't do, like, dun 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 dun.
Yes.
If you do not watch The Last Kingdom, please do not tune out. Do not turn off the podcast, because I think that we might talk you into it.
Yeah, we will.
We might possibly be able to talk you into it.
If you're a Game of Thrones fan,
Yeah. If you're a fan of history at all,
yeah,
particularly like early English history,
Anglo-Saxon period.
yeah, Vikings, like Viking mythology,
the Danelaw.
yeah, if you're a fan of any of those things, if you're a fan of attractive German men, then possibly this might also be a show.
That's what turned Erica onto this show, was Alexander Draymond as Uhtred, son of Uhtred. It wasn't Ian Hart as Father Bioka.
I like Ian Hart, okay?
We love Ian Hart, okay?
No, we actually started watching this show upon a recommendation of one of you guys. Actually, a few
people have recommended it to us, but yeah.
A few of you recommended it to us. I think we put on Instagram ages ago, like maybe after Game of Thrones ended, where we were like,
we need shows. More like Game of Thrones.
Or maybe it was like after Outlander ended.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Anyway, we put it on Instagram, and a lot of people recommended a lot of different things, and we just now got around to watching The Last Kingdom.
Yeah.
Well, within the last month or so.
Yeah.
And we finished it, because those are the kind of binge watchers we are.
Yeah, we caught up to it. It's just ended season 4 of it now, and season 5 has been commissioned, but who knows because of COVID when that'll come out.
Oh, don't remind us.
So it'll be like a year or maybe 2.
Don't remind us.
I don't know.
In this podcast, in Tina Butty, right? We're just gonna pretend like COVID doesn't exist.
COVID doesn't exist.
So many people,
it's a COVID-free zone. You don't even have to wear a mask either.
Like so many people in Austin apparently like to pretend that COVID doesn't exist.
Lots of people across the world.
Yeah.
It's a worldwide thing, people.
I just saw, this has absolutely nothing to do with Last Kingdom, but hey ho, you know what to expect in this podcast.
Oh, hey ho.
I just saw on, I think somebody texted it to me, to be honest, but I put it on Instagram, a picture from this past Halloween weekend. Downtown Austin, 6th Street. If you've never been to Austin, 6th Street is our famous bars and clubs. They play a lot of live music down there. Street in downtown Austin. And people were just out in the street, like Halloweening it up.
Like it doesn't exist.
Yeah, like it was just any other year.
Yeah.
I think I spotted like maybe 3 masks in the picture of a fully crowded street. Like, I have been to 6th Street on Halloween where there were fewer people.
Heaving, mate. It was bloody heaving.
I've been downtown on Halloween where there were less people than there were this past weekend when we are in the middle of a pandemic. But, you know, I mean, I don't know.
Ho, hey, ho.
Yeah. What can you do? Anyway, that end rant.
End rant. Back to The Last Kingdom.
Yeah. Do you want to explain, like, what it's about?
It's based on a series of novels by Bernard Cornwell.
We love shows based on novels, in case you haven't noticed that yet.
Bernard Cornwell is famous for doing the Richard Sharp novels, and they were adapted for TV films in the 90s with Sean Bean in the title role.
Okay.
And it was about this British army officer
We might
in
have to
the
look and see if
Napoleon.
we can find that. I think maybe I might be.
Yeah, you might.
interested in
Yeah,
that.
Sharp was this British army officer in Napoleonic Wars and everything. You know, it's kind of similar to Hornblower, but with armies.
Okay, yeah.
But these books are called the Saxon Stories, and he did an interview years ago with Emerson College where he said, years ago when I was at university, I discovered Anglo-Saxon poetry. For some reason, the history of the Anglo-Saxons isn't much taught in Britain, where I grew up. And it struck me as weird that the English really had no idea where their country came from. Americans know, they even have a starting date, but the English just seemed to assume that England had always been there. So the idea of writing a series about the creation of England was in my head for a long time.
That's so...
It's funny.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
Because it is true. You know, you think about the Anglo-Saxon period. I never really got taught it in school. My history began... I remember my very first history in secondary school. I mean, we were kind of taught it in primary school, but it was King Henry VIII and all his wives and Victorian, you know, and it was just kind of like mishmash here and there, you know, like that's it, you know. But in secondary school, I remember the first history class I had, it was the first page of the textbook was 1066, the Norman invasion. You know, William the Conqueror. Defeated the Battle of Hastings, you know.
Right.
Defeated King Harold, I think it was. But yeah, that's where history started for Britain. Right there was 1066. That was it.
Yeah.
From then on, this is where it all happened. Because the Doomsday Book and everything. Yeah.
The Doomsday Book. That's going to be another...
The Doomsday Book was kind of like the first census.
Yeah, we're going to have to talk about that. Like, because... yeah, I need to talk about that, but not
Let's talk about the Doomsday.
This episode. Yeah.
Because it's coming for you.
But no, I think that, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of history in this world. You know?
There's a lot of history in this world.
There's a lot that's happened, you know.
Lots that happened to this
so
ball of...
So I get that they have to...
wax.
Ball of wax.
That's what they used to call it. A ball. That's this huge ball of wax. What? I think that's what they used to call it, isn't it? What do they call this world?
Never heard that before.
It's this huge marble.
So I understand that, you know, it's kind of like, where do you start and how do you pick and choose what you're going to teach, you know?
Well, yeah.
Because it's just like there's obviously a lot,
turning
you know?
points, main events,
and it's like you're only in school for a certain period of time, so, you know. But I think it's funny that, you know, because there's a couple periods that people who are sort of into history kind of focus on when they choose to, like, actually, probably maybe like 3 main periods of, like, I'm going to say ancient history, ancient in quotation marks.
Ancient in quotation marks, because not that ancient, really, is it?
Well, some of it.
We're not talking dinosaurs here.
The medieval times.
Medieval, yeah.
Yeah. People love that.
And you got to remember, medieval comes after Anglo-Saxon, because sometimes, when, you know, it's like if you're teaching this to a kid, it's like, okay, when did this happen? The medieval times, was that last year? Or, you know, what was it? You know,
the middle, also called the Middle Ages.
The Middle Ages,
and it was a long period of time. It wasn't just like, you know, a decade or yeah. The Renaissance.
The Renaissance, yeah.
And then I'd say the Victorian era. Also, these are like the 3 kinds of, you know, because you have people get really into these like festivals, and they'll either have
Renaissance
festivals, but I think they also do like kind of Middle Ages type festivals where it's
medieval,
and then there's that restaurant Medieval Times and everything where the whole like focus.
Would you like some mead, sir?
You eat the big like chicken with your hands,
and they go wenches. The big it's a turkey leg, because the turkey legs are bigger, aren't they? You know, it's very King Henry VIII.
Yes.
It's very in the King's Hall. The king seems to be enjoying himself tonight. You know,
the Middle Ages. That's about as far back as people who get into history, in my mind anyway, go.
Well, you forget the Romans.
The Romans. I don't know.
And the ancient Greeks.
Are people really fascinated with that? I mean,
Are they?
I'm
well,
pretty
I'll have to ask
interested.
you all up at
pretty
Oxford and everything like that. Are you in?
No, I don't mean Oxford. I don't mean scholars. I'm just talking about general public who is interested in history. They don't really go so far back as the Romans.
The layman would go back to maybe World War II. At a stretch, World War I.
Enough credit. We've been to a Renaissance festival. You know, we've been to Sherwood Forest Fair Festival.
Sherwood Forest
There's
Fair.
A lot of people there
In the heat. In the oppressive heat, and everybody's wearing velvet and stuff like that, like they're wandering around the forest in England where it's going to be cold, and they're just like sweating. They're just like, oh yes, very cold today, isn't it, sire? It's just like, yeah, it's very cold. In Texas.
There were a lot of people at that, though. You know,
that was the first one too. I think we went to. That was the first.
I don't think so. But
yeah, it was the first.
There's even a bigger one than that. You know, that one's just kind of the little local one.
Yeah.
But there's the Texas Renaissance Fair, so it's like people are into that. You know.
Yeah. Oh, obviously.
You can't just.
It's
say,
reenacting. You
can't just say, "Oh, the laymen, they're only into World War II and nothing earlier." I'm
talking about
that.
the really, the really, really like.
But I'm talking about people who are into history. You know, not scholars, but just people who are into history,
who enjoy it. Yeah.
I just don't. Yeah, they don't really go back so far as the Romans or the Vikings or the Norman invasion, you know? And so for that reason, this kind of a show and people who write
this
these
is Western
kind of books,
European history now, yeah.
And people who write these kind of books and stuff, I find them so interesting, entertaining, you know, it's like, it's just so good. This is the kind of thing that I absolutely love. And you told me, I don't know if you have it in your notes, but the guy who wrote this, the reason he wrote it is because he found out that he was related to...
Well, when he was in his 50s,
yeah,
he met his birth father, named William Oughtred.
Oh, what?
But it's spelt Outred.
Jeez, they've been carrying that name in their family line for that long.
And he learned the story. Well, yeah, there was several Outreds of Bebbanburg.
Yeah.
But they were a century after the Alfred and everything. But he just kind of like closed the gap.
Yeah.
To make it more of a fun story. And he learned the story of his own descent from the Saxons who owned the fortress of Bebbanburg, which is now Bamburgh Castle.
Yeah.
In Northumbria.
Mm-hmm.
Thus was born Uhtred, the protagonist of the series,
Kingdom,
which is played by Alexander Draymond, your boyfriend. And
I would never cheat on Aidan Turner.
And that's where he was like, oh, I'm Uhtred the Bold, you know, and he saw off, and it was the several Uhtred. He had sons. He had Uhtred, son of Uhtred, you know.
Yeah, we laugh, you know. Dominic started the podcast off with, and I'm Uhtred, son of Uhtred. We laugh because it's like Uhtred, son of Uhtred, but son of Uhtred would have literally been his last name. Like, our last name is Williams.
Yeah, I don't think they did like last names back then.
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
You were literally just whoever you were the
Bianca,
child of.
You know.
You were literally just whoever you were the child of.
Yeah.
You know, that was your last name.
Alfred. Until
they decided, and that may not have been until like the Normans, actually, when they decided actually, your last name is going to be
Norman.
It's going to be what you... No, it's not going to be any longer who you belong to, but it's going to be what you are.
Or what your dad was.
Yeah.
Bakerson.
So, you're a baker. You're a baker. You're a fisher.
Fishers,
fisherman. Yeah. You know, it's like...
Fisher,
yeah.
Baker,
Cooper.
Cobbler.
I don't know if anyone's last name is Cobbler.
Yeah. A lot of cobblers.
But anyway,
all of them. Yeah, that's what it
Uhtred, son of Uhtred. Yeah. So son of Uhtred is like Dominic Williams, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Williams. And the thing is, you know, you're going through my line and you're getting so frustrated finding all these William Williams.
Yeah.
And William Williamson and, you know, you know, and it's just like, that's what they called. It's like, his father was called William Williams, too.
Yeah, for example, that's where, like, Johnson You're
Yeah.
literally Johnson,
son. Yeah, Johnson. Yeah.
William's son. Yeah. That's where those kinds of names come from too. Yeah, I'm very big. I mean, if you guys have been following us for a long time, you've heard me say before, I'm very big into research and genealogy. So
genealogy bank,
anything
ancestral
that's like
findings, all that kind of stuff.
Any kind of series that is historical, I eat it right up.
Yes.
But
in the crook.
Yeah, so
yeah, because in 86 when this is set, it's set in England.
Mm-hmm.
And, the last kingdom. And in 866, which was the year it's set, when it starts off, England is divided into the Heptarchy, which is the 7 kingdoms. What does this sound like?
Yeah, yeah.
Game of Thrones for all of you.
for anyone who doesn't know.
The 4 main kingdoms in Anglo-Saxon England were East Anglia, Mercia, Northumbria, and Wessex. And Alfred was king of Wessex.
Yeah. And he was a real person.
He was a real Alfred the Great.
Yeah. So a lot of the people in this show, and I'm assuming in the books, we have not read the books, but I can see reading them in the future.
Yeah.
A lot of the people in this are real people.
They're real people,
yeah.
And it's stuff.
I mean, obviously, there's some made up people. Like, I'm gonna guess Ragnar and Breda were probably made up.
Probably, yes. I mean, it's basically set around the same time as the Danes invade England and they conquer York, and other Anglo-Saxon lands, and they're gradually attacked, plundered, and ruled by Viking Danes.
Yeah.
And it's finally only the kingdom of Wessex is left.
Yeah.
But yeah, the East Anglia, Mercia, Northumbria, Wessex, and the other 3 kingdoms which were conquered before the unification of England were Essex, Kent, and Sussex.
Yeah.
So they were conquered by Mercia and Wessex. I think Mercia and Wessex and Northumbria were the biggest kingdoms. And, eventually in the Cornwallum, or what they call it, that was part of the Celtic lands along with Wales and Scotland.
Yeah.
So they were kind of separate from all these other kingdoms back then,
this is just a side note, but I love, for anybody who's seen this show, I love how Scotland is portrayed in this show, because it's just like, they're pretty much just as wild as the Vikings,
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh no, you don't want to go up into Scotland, like.
Well, some of the Vikings tried to go up there.
Don't even get close to the border,
Well, the border back then, I guess, was Hadrian's Wall.
Yeah.
Because, Emperor Hadrian of the Roman Empire, had it built to keep them out.
Yeah.
Well, they used to call it the Roman Wall back then,
Yeah.
And Northumbria was quite massive. I mean, it's not... It's... I think it's further north than it was back then,
Yeah.
Because I think Scotland was much bigger.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, border-wise.
Right.
I mean, because everything is fuzzy back then. And Mercia was basically the Midlands of what is the Midlands of England today. Wessex was basically the southwest. And East Anglia was pretty much roughly East Anglia,
Yeah.
And it was farmland.
Funnily, Wales was pretty much exactly how it is still.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much exactly how it is still. There was Gwynedd, and then there was the South Welsh lands, which were called something, ruled by Hywel Dda. And then I think the first king of unified Wales was Griffith ap Llywelyn. I think I'm not. Gruffydd ap Llywelyn, maybe. I think he was the first thing before Edward conquered Wales and everything. Yeah, I mean, this is all going on and on, well after Anglo-Saxon times and the Norman invasion and everything,
But if you guys like Game of Thrones, like if you were a fan of Game of Thrones, obviously this doesn't have like White Walkers and dragons and all that.
Yeah, the fantasy element is out of it. It's just all like, real stuff.
It's like Game of Thrones IRL. Game of Thrones
in real life.
In real life. And it really truly is, I mean, obviously I'm American, not that that's like an excuse to not have known this history, but we're not taught, you said you guys are not taught it in Britain, so why would we be
very,
taught it over
very,
here?
you know, it's like we get taught about the medieval, you know, like stuff in the medieval. I mean, pretty much our history begins in 1066.
Yeah,
and then it goes through the Middle Ages, you know, with the Peasants' Revolt. Oh, God, I remember that one.
So obviously this is set in the 800s.
Tyler and the Peasants' Revolt, and then the Kings and.
So this is. Oh wait, you said begins in 8. Oh no, I thought you were saying 866.
Yeah,
it starts in 8. So 200 years before
200 years before
were taught.
Before the Norman invasion. Yeah.
And learning about it and watching the episodes. It basically is exactly where George R.R. Martin got the idea for Game of Thrones.
Basically,
I've never heard him say that he based it off of. I mean, although parts of it were obvious that he based it off of Britain,
yes,
you know.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that he basically just completely ripped off the entire actual
Anglo-Saxon
real
period,
life.
Medieval period. Yeah.
Yeah. He totally just told a story and added some fantasy elements and just like changed the names to protect the whoever, you know,
or the guilty.
Yeah. But so if you like Game of Thrones, you're going to love this show. It's just exactly Game of Thrones, only without the fantasy.
Yeah, you're gonna love this show because the story kind of the only thing is kind of like it kind of skips through time quite fast.
Oh yeah, I do not like that actually.
And you know, the main characters don't seem to age because I mean the story covers about 40 to 45 years.
Yeah.
From, you know, by the end of season 4. So from 1 to 4 it's like 40 years every year. You know, it skips through time. You know, Uhtred has a son and then he's like 10 years old, then he's 16, you know.
Yeah. And Uhtred looks the exact same. Yeah, it's
whereas Father Bjorka, played by Ian Hart, who's pretty much, you know, he's a priest, who's, you know, one of Alfred's advisors, is very like, you know, he's kind of he's aging. He looks like he's aging.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm not sure if they aged him though, or if he just aged over time.
He just aged over time,
you know, and it was just noticeable because they don't seem to have like really bothered with makeup on anybody else trying to age them up, you know, which I don't know what kind of budget this show has because they're a Netflix show, right?
First of all, it started as a co-production between BBC Two and Netflix. I think for the first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And then season 3, it was solely Netflix. I guess, you know, BBC Two lost it. They just bought it all up and were like, okay, we're going to make this a Netflix thing, you know, because it had gathered interest.
But everything. I know I saw some sort of interview somewhere where they were talking about, oh, well, we don't have as big a budget as Game of Thrones or whoever. You know? You can't really tell that much in the show. No, I mean, there's some
film in Hungary.
CGI fire.
Well, they film in Hungary and Wales.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess those are the most medieval looking places, you know.
Yeah. More ancient than medieval, actually.
Yeah. So, you know, they have this kind of their budget looks good.
It looks good, yeah. It doesn't look like a cheap
it's production
TV
values at the end of the day, you know. It's not something that was shot in the 1970s, you know.
But I mean, like I just said, they're not spending a lot of money, obviously, on makeup to age the characters.
No.
And to be honest, as a fair criticism of the show, I think it does.
It's good that they don't do that.
No, I don't think so. I think it's not because, I mean, except for the fact that you get to look at Uhtred looking good the whole time, but it makes me go, wait. Okay, he's now dating this girl, but yet he was already an adult when she was.
You're talking about
when she was little. So really, he should look quite a bit older than he does because she looks like a full on.
She looks
adult
about 20 now.
Yeah.
It takes you a little.
It kind of takes me out of it a little bit because I'm just like, how come he hasn't aged at all? You know, it's a little bit. Ethelfled, that's who I'm talking about.
And another thing is the names, you know, Ethelfled,
yes.
Ethelwald, Ethelred, and it's like it soon becomes clear. It's like, how are they keeping up with who's who?
Well, for the audience anyway.
Ether, was like a prefix. It was like lord or princess or prince.
Ethel, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Ethelfled, Ethelred,
Yeah.
it's all kind of like the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was before they decided to call people lord and
Lord
lady.
or lady, yeah.
Or prince or princess, you know.
There's another one, too. What's the other one they use?
Elderman.
Well, no, because that's a
Yeah.
separate word. No, there's another name that's like a beginning, a prefix of the names that several people have also. And then the last thing we've mentioned already, it's just that they speed through time so quickly, and they don't really tell you how much time has passed.
No, that you just have to kind of guess.
Yeah, all of a sudden his wife will come out with, and I say his to just mean anybody. His wife will come out with this like 5-year-old kid that we never even saw them have, and now they've got a 5-year-old kid, and we're like, okay, so it's like 5 years later then, I guess.
Season 1 covers the years 866 to 878. Season 2, 878 to 886, so about 10 years a season.
Jeez.
Season 3, 893 to 900.
And Uhtred's hot the whole time.
And Season 4 takes place about 901 to 910. And that's like when Edward the Elder was king.
Yeah.
Because Alfred's gone and everything. I mean, just reading the history will spoil it for you, I guess, And I mean, Season 5 will probably cover it all the way up to when Alfred's dream of England being unified is realized under Athelstan.
Yeah, I wonder how many books there are, and I wonder if they're making a season per book, or, I wonder how it's working out in relation to the books. I mean, it would help if we have read the book.
Yeah, it would help, yeah.
Let us know if any of you have read the books. Let us know how, how the books are in relation to the series.
Yeah.
And also, I want to know, like, how many more series are we going to have? You know what I mean? Like, are they going to end it, or are they going to keep going past the books? I don't know if he's still writing them. Or...
I don't know if he's still writing them or if he's finished them.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up.
But I just absolutely love that idea. I love the idea of, like, finding somebody in your family tree, and I think that all the time. I've said that so many times. We've watched Who Do You Think You Are? And which I love. I don't know how much. I don't know that Dominic loves it quite as much as I love it, but I am obsessed.
It's interesting. I like it. Yeah.
And there's so many people that they find in their family trees, and I'm like, you guys have the resources. Like, you are actors, or you're a writer, or you're a director, or whoever. You have the resources to make this story a thing.
Well, yeah. That kind of did happen with that one.
Oh, yeah.
That one woman, I can't remember what her name was. She played her own grandmother, though, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because it was such a crazy story about, her grandfather.
That was something they just found out, too.
And they just found out, and they were
just,
I can't remember who it was now. Ian Glenn was in it. That's all I remember. And it was like set in the 60s or something. It was, or maybe the
during
40s.
During the war, I think.
40s up until the 60s.
Yeah. What had happened is she found out that her grandfather had been living this other life and had been married, I think, a couple other times, and had all these other kids.
He was a spy during the war because MI5 wouldn't release some documents on him. And, basically it turned out, like, was he a spy or was he just a philanderer?
Was he just
adulterer, a bigamist or whatever,
Yeah.
It's just like, because, I mean, and just during the war, it was kind of like, people could get around and go, oh, I'm a spy, like, it was a very Gary Sparrow type thing from Goodnight Sweetheart.
Yeah.
But, did he just keep that up and was just like, yeah, I've got to do this, got to go away for a while because I've got this nurse that, I've got another kid with.
Yeah.
It's just...
But I always think that these actors and everybody should make the stories that they find in their families past a show, a movie, or whatever.
Yeah.
They're so interesting, and I would love to do that with someone in my own family. That's like a dream that I have of making a story out of someone that I've found in my family tree.
I mean, really, the characters tell the story in The Last Kingdom, and history is the backdrop.
Yeah.
Because the Uhtred, Uhtred the Bold, he was just kind of like, he was someone who ruled Bebbanburg like I think it was a century later, a century after the Alfred the Great and Edward the Elder. So what he just kind of did was he's just like, oh, I'll just put this in Saxon times.
Yeah.
And, like, put them together and make Uhtred this kind of, like, guy, that goes around pretty much saving England. Saving Wessex, saving Mercia,
But you can do that.
And he's a Dane, so it's like, he's got conflict there. Am I a Dane? I was born an Englishman, or an Anglo-Saxon, but am I a Dane? Because I was raised by them, or am I, it's like walking the line,
The conflict is really good. I think that's probably the
best part of the show,
The conflict is
Him
really
and Breda,
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I like the whole kind of dynamic between Breda and Uhtred, because Breda is so, is very into, she was born a Saxon too, but she was taken as a kid by them, when the Danes invaded. And so she's like, I'm fully Dane now, I don't care about Saxons, I don't care about unifying England, but Uhtred seems to be like, I just want to get back to Bebbanburg, but I kind of do want to see Alfred's dream realized,
Yeah.
And it's just very interesting.
It's very interesting.
And I think you'd love it.
It's got a great cast. I wasn't really actually familiar with pretty much anybody except for Father Bioka.
David Dawson, who plays Alfred the Great, he's been in a lot of stuff. He was in Banished, that series that never took off. It was only a series long about the colonization of Australia.
I remember him mostly as this dull brother from Doc Martin, from an episode or two of Doc Martin.
Yes, he was in Doc Martin as the dull brother. I remember, Eliza Butterworth is in it as Alfred's wife, and they've dowdied Eliza Butterworth up, because usually she's quite pretty, but they've dowdied her down and made her look, and,
Oh, poor girl.
Poor girl.
But yeah, I don't know. We probably haven't done a really great job of explaining what the show is actually about, but you should definitely check it out.
It's about England and how it came to be.
Yeah, basically, that's the gist of it. And then you have...
you really don't do it over here. I mean, we're watching Turn, Washington Spies now, which is about, like, the Revolutionary War over here, but it seems like, again, like there's not really much market for it over here. I mean, there might be, but just that they're just not making it.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, nobody cares about 1776.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, to be honest, there's not much of a big deal made about this show. I hadn't heard of it.
I think it's because of Game of Thrones.
I had not heard of it before some of our Instagram followers mentioned it. I'd never heard of the show before, and it's fabulous. It's a great show.
I think most people are writing it off as a Game of Thrones ripoff when really it's probably the other way round, really, because this is just telling a story. Telling a more historical story. Yeah, because, I mean, King's Landing and Westeros, they're not real places,
Yeah.
England is.
Is it?
Wessex.
Is it now?
Alva. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Cornwall.
We've really got to just end it there. I mean, we could, as you can tell, we could just keep rambling on.
Rolling on here.
But we better wrap it up. If you guys have not entered the giveaway, please do that. Go on to our Instagram page, our Twitter, our Facebook, any of those. Find the post that says giveaway across the top of the picture.
Like it.
Like it. The post tells you exactly how you need to enter. There aren't that many steps. All you have to do is say Texas tea for me, I think.
Texas tea for me. Tag 3 friends.
Yeah. We'll be announcing the winners next Thursday. So you guys have until Tuesday the 10th. So this coming Tuesday to enter, and that's it. And then we'll be giving it away on our 200th episode.
Yeah! And you have to listen to the podcast to know who won.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who won, then you didn't listen to the podcast.
Yeah, you'll have to listen to the podcast and contact us if you are the winner.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate your support as always, and we will talk to you next time.
Destiny is all.
Bye.